Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Your Life is the Medicine. I'm your host. My name is Sonny. Thank you very much for being here. I'm grateful to anyone who's new and to anyone who's been here before. So thank you. Thank you for your time and energy. It's precious. So today I really want to talk about self-care for healers. And I'm using the word healer broadly. It may be that your profession is healing, and it may be that you are a caretaker or tender or healer or space holder for the people in your lives, regardless of what your professional capacity is. And so really self-care for healers, for anyone with a healer's heart, anyone who spends time and energy and love tending and holding space for other people in any capacity, friends, family, or clients. And let's start with talking about the word self-care. Self-care, it's not my favorite word, and I'm using it here because I don't have a better word and because it's a recognizable word, but I want us to think of it differently. So self-care has often become things like one-time things or Band-Aids that you put on something that hurts or a wound, right? It's like getting a massage or buying yourself something or going to a yoga class or whatever activity it is. The marketing has made self-care into these often purchasable activities or things, red light therapy, et cetera, et cetera. And when I'm talking about self-care, it is activities and it's a way of moving through the world. It's a way of building a life that meets your needs. And so that's really what I think of when I think of self-care, is creating a life that meets my needs. And that means sometimes I'm going to need some of those one-time things like a massage or a yoga class or whatever thing it is, because even though I am intentional about creating my life, there will be times where my capacity is diminished for various reasons, and I need to more intensively replenish my capacity and practice self-care. And so that's what I want you to take away. Self-care is building a life that meets your needs, building a life that allows you to take care of you. And I'm really talking especially to healers because I work with a lot of healers, and I think that healers and people who hold space are holding a lot right now. And I will say, as a physician, I was not taught how to take care of myself when I am engaging with other people's pain in any way. And so my own journey of how to do this or of learning about this and doing it inadequately was as either a med student or a resident. And I remember there was a chaplain at UCSF who was an incredible human and who I learned a lot from. But one of the things she talked to us about was about kind of ritual and processing a patient's death and sort of things that you could do when you had a particularly painful or difficult or touching kind of emotional experience as a trainee, as a resident or a med student, and how to kind of bring yourself some closure or how to start processing that. And so my first understanding of how to take care of myself as a physician was that when something particularly hard happens, you do something in response to try to diminish that emotional response, right? So a patient dies, you write a letter or you go for a walk or you do something for that particular situation. Another memory of sort of how self-care was taught at the beginning of my internship, which is the first year residency for physicians, we had probably called an orientation. I don't even remember. But I remember being taught that when you have a particularly difficult rotation in residency, so the person that was speaking to us as internal medicine residents was telling a story about talking to an OB-GYN resident, and that for them, one of their hardest rotations was GYN-ONC, so women with gynecologic cancers. And that at the end of GYN-ONC, they would often, like, she would go buy herself a new sweater or something like that, right? Like, you get something, you reward yourself with something nice for having gone through this incredibly emotional, difficult emotional rotation, taking care of often younger women with cancers. And so that's what I was taught, right? Like, you have a really hard month and you reward yourself with a nice dinner or a nice purchase. Or, you have something difficult and you do a ritual to sort of ease that pain, whether it's writing a letter, memorializing the patient that died in some private way, whatever it is, you do something to take care of that incident. And so this is what I thought you did for self-care. And so, of course, like, I have always been someone interested in wellness. So I was always exercising, and I was always going to yoga, and I was always getting outside. But in terms of learning how to move the energy that built up, or the energy that I unknowingly took on caring for patients, I wasn't taught that. And so I remember sort of probably 4 or 5 years into being an attending physician. And so now I finished internal medicine residency. I went to work for Indian Health Services as a hospitalist for a couple of years. And then I went to palliative care fellowship. And now I am a palliative care attending. And I was talking to my therapist, and we were talking about something, and the topic of self-care came up. And this is sort of I had been coping by going through my days and then trying to do enough self-care at the end of the day or on the weekends to take care of everything that I was carrying from the week. And as a palliative care physician, I was working full-time, mostly inpatient at that point. And I also had a 1-year-old son. And there was a lot, you can imagine there's a lot of heaviness. A lot of my work was talking to people about end of life, or about the possibility of not getting better, or how to try to have good quality of life as they were dying. And so I was taking all of this in because I am a deeply empathic healer. And then I was trying at the end of the day and on the weekends to do enough self-care that I could undo it and then go back and do it again. And my therapist is the first one who sort of challenged the definition of self-care and really structured it in the way that I said it to you, that it is not the things that are marketed to us. It is the life that we build that meets our needs or doesn't meet our needs. And so that's sort of where I started to shift and started to think about how I was doing things during the day. And I remember being part of a panel on wellness for, I think, the palliative care fellows at the University of Colorado. And there was another panelist who was talking about checking in with herself during the day. And she said, I regularly check in with myself during the day and sort of check in with my body battery, if you will, because if I'm depleted, I am no good to anyone else. And I was talking a lot about, as the panelist, about other types of support, about mindset, about other things. But this woman's teaching to the fellows really sat with me because I wasn't in a place, I did not yet have a skill set where I could regularly check in with myself, know how I was doing, and change what I was doing in the moment if needed, right? I was still sort of burning myself out over the course of the day and then trying to replenish. And I was doing a much better job of replenishing, but I was still depleting myself every day. And so, the journey has been all sorts of things. Working with a shamanic practitioner, a spiritual teacher. I've done a lot of physician coaching programs. I've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of different things and to arrive where I am today. But when I think of self-care for healers, and I did my first retreat this weekend, it was really special to get to lead a group of women through an entire day's journey. But one of the comments someone said to me at the snack was, there's a lot of pain in that room. And that's true. And I think there's a lot of pain in the world. There's a lot of pain that women and men, but my experience is working more with women. There is a lot of pain that women are carrying that they don't have space to talk about, to share, or to set down. And they may not have the skill sets to know how to set those down. But yes, there's a lot of pain in the world. And so my hope is to give you a different way of thinking about self-care so that we begin to be able to not carry all of the pain around in the same way. And I would say I worked with a Qigong master for a while, and in talking about my work, was that I really wanted to hold space, hold people's pain momentarily, or to be with them in their pain. And she really made me pay attention to the language a lot, because we don't actually want to hold anything for anyone else, right? Like, we want to allow it to move, but we don't in any way want to accidentally hold it and keep carrying it. And I had an acupuncturist, I probably said this before, but my acupuncturist in San Diego taught me that when she finishes with a client or a difficult session, she always says, I give myself back to me and I give you back to you. Because it's the same idea of, like, we don't want to carry pain and suffering that doesn't belong to us. And if we're not careful, we will, and it just accumulates, and it feels heavy, and it feels sad, and it feels painful, and it's not all ours to carry. And so when I think about self-care and creating a life that meets my needs, I think about the way that I've structured my life to actually meet my needs. So structured my life so that I actually have 3 meals a day, because I'm someone that I need 3 meals a day or I don't feel good. And created a life where I most of the time am able to have fairly healthy food. And I've created a life where I have time, and this is still a work in progress, but to do the activities, go for a walk, ride my horse, go to yoga, be in community, where I have the time to do the things that I need. And so the big thing, and maybe the harder thing, but the big thing is moving towards, little by little, creating a life that allows you to do what you need to do to take care of you. And a lot of us don't actually have this. A lot of us are trying to fit self-care into the margins of the needs of our career or our job, the needs of our families, the needs of our aging parents, whatever it may be. But that is the structure. And then there are the various ways that I tend to myself and my needs. So there's structure, and then there's the things that I'm paying attention to and the things that I'm doing. And so what am I paying attention to? First, you have to be checking in with your body. And that means not asking my mind what it is I need, because my mind may tell me, well, you haven't lifted weights this week, you need to lift, or, you need to go do X, Y, or Z. But it's about getting into my body wisdom and asking my body what I need. And for me, that means often pausing and checking in, like making sure that I can feel into my heart center and feel into my pelvis. And that just makes me take a deep breath even now doing it. And from those energetic centers, asking myself what it is I need. And as an example, I had a busy week. My husband's been out of town, which just means that it's kind of me holding everything together. And I did a lot more movement yesterday and the day before, which felt really good. But when I woke up this morning, and today when I'm recording this is a Friday, my body felt heavy and tired, and my mind felt tired. And I had all of these plans to do a bunch of tasks, and even to do some things like fun things, like I was thinking about riding my horse. And yet when I really checked in with my body, I felt heavy and I felt flat, and I was having trouble connecting to the spark and the creativity and the joy. And so I had actually gotten dressed with a plan to do something else. And in checking in with my body, I decided that I was going to take the morning and instead go to an in-person yoga class that would put me back in my body, that was slow and nourishing, and that is a beautiful community that I enjoy showing up in. And so that was like a real-time example of me checking in with my body and realizing that what I had planned for the day, I could push through if I had to, but I didn't have to, and my body would be better served by taking time to care for me before moving into all of the tasks. And again, that goes back to the structure, and that I have created time that is flexible sometimes, not always, but sometimes I have flexibility and can modify I'm doing to meet my own needs. So the first thing I'm paying attention to is, what does my body need? And part of that is paying attention to nervous system regulation and how regulated or dysregulated I'm feeling. For a long time, I really only paid attention to like the upregulated dysregulation, where I'm just agitated or anxious or angry, but like feel like the energy's just swirling and it's uncomfortable. And lately I've been paying attention to the hypoarousal as well, when I've gone beyond the big irritated, anxious, whatever feelings, and have now moved into sort of shutting down and like, I just don't want to do anything. And so I'm paying attention to whether I'm feeling regulated, whether I'm feeling overstimulated, whether I'm feeling very dysregulated and upregulated, or whether I feel like I'm starting to shut down and I can't cope in the moment. And so that's the other thing that I'm paying attention to, like what my body needs and kind of what my energy feels like, or what my nervous system feels like it's doing. And then as I sort of identify where I am and what I need, then there are various practices that I use to help tend to whatever I'm needing. And so for me, movement is a big practice. And I mostly do slower movement nowadays, whether that's slower, gentler yoga, whether that's going for a walk. The walk for me serves the need of nature. Like nature is a really powerful co-regulator that can really help me slow down and help me feel connected and grounded to the earth if I'm paying attention when I'm outside. And so that also brings in like all of these activities need some intention and some presence to them to get the most benefit out of them. Because if I go for a walk and I'm irritated or angry, or I have this thought loop in my head that's just, I keep having the same, imaginary conversation where I tell someone how annoyed I am, or, I have the same worried thought loop while I walk, that's not actually going to help me change what's going on inside. And so it's, again, paying attention, and then it is slowing down. It's looking with real presence at the environment I'm in. It's noticing the bird calls and the wildlife and the color of the leaves or the blossoms or whatever it is. But movement and being outside are powerful tools for me, even if it just means going outside for a couple of minutes. So as the weather has gotten nicer. Even when I'm at the hospital, I will often step outside for a couple of minutes to get sunshine, to take in the fresh air, and to like help myself ground again before I go back to my work. And so outside, movement, breath, of course, is a powerful intentional practice at times. Nature, for me, my animals, but again, it's about being present with the animals, right? It's my overly loving Labrador who has a lot of love to give. It is getting to feed my horses. It is taking a moment to pet them and talk to them and be with them when I feed my horses. And it's getting to see the wildlife in Colorado. Like that's really, again, when I'm busy, I can just ignore it. Or when I'm like not mindful. And it's the power of presence just really brings the magic back and really helps our nervous system become more regulated again. And then I have some specific practices that I can do or engage in when things are harder. And so one of those practices I learned from Dr. Amanda Hansen, who I think learned a version of it from Regina Thomas Shower, Mama Gina. And it's swamping, right? It is moving with rage and grief, and then this sensuality and this feeling of rising. But it is putting on music, and it is raging and grieving and being with the emotion so that you can move some of that energy out of you. And I will say that when I have worked, I only do 2 days a week in the hospital typically, and that is probably close to my capacity, because I like to be there and feel deeply and really show up deeply for the people that I sit with. But on particularly difficult weeks where there's been a lot of heaviness and sadness in the people that I talk to, I can often feel my own grief rising. And for me, I notice that of like I tear up much more quickly than if I had the full capacity to really be with other people's emotions. And so when I start to feel that my grief, it almost feels like I have this quality of like a grief bucket inside, and that the level's getting really full. Right. And so when I've been in a lot of intense conversations in the hospital, it's like I can feel that it is full and it is so close to the surface for me, and it triggers my own grief. And so when I am feeling that, I know that I need to cry. I need to be with the grief. I need to listen to music that evokes that grief. Like I need to move that emotion so that I am not carrying it, so that I can find joy and presence in my own life, and I can show up tomorrow for the next person, right? And so swamping has been a really important practice for me over the last year since I learned it. The other pieces are more of the spiritual and metaphysical pieces that have also really helped me at various times. And so one of the things is showing up with other women in women's circles, whether it's a circle that I'm leading or a circle that I'm participating in, getting to be with other women and hear that our experiences are shared is powerful. And often circles have movement or prayer or guided meditation or something that helps move that energy and connect us to the divine in us and to something bigger in the world. One of the other practices that I have learned from a couple of different people is really the way that my teacher says it is like so much of what's happening in the world is too heavy for us to carry. And so we have to give it back to the earth. And you can give it back to the earth by blowing it or speaking it into a rock and putting the rock back on the earth, asking for that heaviness to be transmuted or released in some way. You can put rocks or other things in water, like running water. You can release something by burning it, right? So you can write something down and then ceremonially burn it. So there are rituals of releasing that can be helpful when my bucket is getting really full, or when something is particularly heavy and I know that I shouldn't carry it, that it doesn't serve me to carry it. I also really like having stones. I have a connection to stones, and so I have obsidian, malachite, which is very heart-centered, lots of stones in my home. I often wear jewelry that has different kinds of stones that helps me feel connected. I also often wear jewelry that has various animals, because for me, the animals really connect me to myself, to nature, to spirit. And so again, these are like touchstones. These are ways that I keep connecting throughout the day to bring me back to center, because that's really what it's about, is being in our center and having our energy collected for us to use, rather than it being kind of scattered around or held down by pain. And I would also say that I really love essential oils, and that they can also be a tool using, I have them everywhere, sprays, oils. They can be a tool, again, to bring us back towards center and to connect to the plants, if that speaks to you in the oils. So to kind of summarize, self-care is the life that we create that meets our needs. We all need practices that help us move grief and pain so that we can deeply feel the grief, the pain, and the joy. And we are all experiencing heavy emotions in these times. Many people have described them as dark times of human history at the moment. And I don't know that I would fully buy into that, but maybe. There are definitely very dark moments. I choose to also see the beautiful moments, and I choose to intentionally move the pain and the energy and the grief and the rage so that I can show up and be the best version of me as often as possible. And so I told you sort of where I started with self-care, and it's always a work in progress, right? Like, we all keep learning, we always keep adapting. But I started residency in 2010. So in the last 16 years, I have learned to be in my body. I have learned how to connect with my body's energy and really listen to what it is that my body needs. I have really learned to distinguish when my mind is telling me something versus my body's wisdom telling me something. And I have had the great fortune to work with many different teachers, learning various practices to help me stay centered, to help me stay connected to my own authenticity, and to help cultivate joy. And I think grief is a powerful, powerful teacher. Grief it's an invitation to really be with something powerful, and we need to move it, right? We need to keep moving that. We need to keep being in relationship with it so that it doesn't just keep weighing us down. And so I wanted to read you something. This is from Jaya John's book, Freedom, Medicine Words for Your Brave Revolution. And it's talking about rest. Do you practice the excuse that you don't have time to rest? This is the classic conditioned thought we use to neglect rest. If you lose your health, you will find more than enough time. Everything in our life is a matter of care and priority. We choose what to find time for. It doesn't take extraordinary time to close our eyes, exhale, and let our body release tension even for a few seconds. We spend cumulative hours on things that don't benefit us. A simple adjustment to our attitude about being well and valuing ourselves makes all the difference. And that's the important part, is valuing ourselves. You don't have to find the time. It's all around you. Busyness is a cultural disease. Cure yourself. Simplicity blesses a revolution. To stay in touch with your growth journey and with your peace and clarity, practice asking yourself, does it nourish me? The question and the answer can set you free. This is a way to develop spirit discernment, learning to see what is good for you and what is not. Does it nourish me? The question is a filter. It helps you purify your life. Here's to your soulful freedom. Don't just pretend to rest. Rest is not a rehearsal. It is a sacred ceremony birthing your new life. Not physically working is not the same as resting, dear soul. If your mind still labors, your body still tires, your nerves still fray, your spirit still grows weary. I meet a lot of women who are doing practices, who are trying really hard to take care of themselves, and yet they're stuck in the inability to really rest, where even if they're trying to rest their bodies, their nervous systems are still hypervigilant. They're still running in the background. And so I think these practices really help us anchor more deeply, help us stay centered, help us feel better, help us move towards health and vibrant energy, help us find joy and meaning, and stay connected to who we authentically are. And so I hope that you remember it's the structure of your life, and then it's the practices, it's the pauses in the moment. Some of them can be long practices like a yoga class, and some of the transformation is just small moments throughout the day that you remember to pause and check in with your body and ask your body what it needs. So if you're able, I'd invite you to close your eyes just for a moment. Take a nice deep breath and let it all out. See if you can connect to the energy in your heart center, connecting deeper into your pelvis, just feeling into that area of your body, if it's accessible. And then asking yourself, what is it that I need in this moment? And sometimes the mind will try to jump in with an answer, and just think it. See what you can connect to in your body. And maybe something will come and maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Even that moment of connecting with your body has power. So thank you. I hope that some of these practices help you in your journey. Talk to you next time.